I love how you're saying words to me like I fucking know what you're talking about right now.
The fans will know.
the fans out there. You could just make up like tiddlywinks, and I'd be like, sure, that's a character from He-Man if you say so. Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanny Show's Torture Cinema.
I have the power!
That's a better one than in the fucking movie. I'm Sean.
And I'm Daniel.
And on this live Torture Cinema show, we'll discuss Masters of the Universe from 1987, starring, among others, Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, Courtney Cox, Billy Barty, Robert Duncan McNeil, and again, many more. It was written by David Odell and directed by Gary Goddard. There was absolutely no product placement in this movie whatsoever. You did not see a whole stack of Pepsi cans. Was not present. So this movie was chosen by our listeners based on a poll, the theme of which was created actually by my co-host today, Daniel, and Jeff Exelon, who is a longtime Patreon supporter, and then our patrons actually voted for it. The theme for that was 1987.
Summer of 87.
So, summer of 87. I did not actually specifically look at just summer movies. I was just, but I didn't. We ended up there. Doesn't matter. Yes, I went through a very long list of 87. So, yeah. But look, we probably deserved this movie. It is absolutely the kind of film we would do for this particular subcast.
Yeah, I was surprised we hadn't.
Me too, actually. Yeah.
As always, please share your comments with us about this and past episodes at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. And if you're live with us today, feel free to throw in thoughts and questions our way, and Sean can read those off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, audience participation is always welcome, so thanks everybody for being here. So, we need to get to one of the things we're doing, because we usually talk about what beverage we're drinking. Beverages may be anything that you would like. As a reminder, for folks at home, and also to follow Twitch rules, while we may consume the alcohols while we do this, it is not required. And one should, of course, drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. Do not drink to excess. Don't do anything that will kill your liver. Your liver is an important organ, and you need it. Daniel knows this, because Daniel works with bacteria and stuff that I'm sure somehow are involved in the liver, or at least tangentially. I'm just making stuff up. I don't know.
They're involved
but just
in everything.
Yeah, be smart.
And they made us. They made the liquor for us also. So.
Oh, they did. That's right. One of my beverages is very much involved with small organisms were involved.
Yeah, usually yeast,
specifically
but
yeast.
Sometimes bacteria. If you like the tequila.
Is there bacteria in tequila?
Well, bacteria is what ferments the agave to make tequila, and this is one of my favorite stories I heard. It's not very good at doing fermentation in that yeast is really good at turning the sugars into ethanol. The bacteria that does it for tequila, though, doesn't just make ethanol, it also makes lactic acid. So it's kind of like alcohol and yogurt together. And my PI in grad school, her hypothesis was one of the reasons why people get so sick on tequila sometimes, and it has a reputation, particularly if you mix it with things, maybe because of that, because you're not just drinking alcohol, you're drinking lactic acid along with it.
Whoa.
Unless they remove it somehow in the processing, I don't know. But
I mean, I suppose you could filter it or something.
Right, there's probably something that can be done. But anyway, yeah, the bacteria, yeast is really good at making ethanol. Bacteria usually make ethanol and a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeast is the big one for making beer.
Anyway, we're off topic.
Yeah, but we're still on topic. We're talking about beverages. But Daniel, what are you drinking tonight?
I made a Boilermaker tonight, which is a cider with some whiskey. And so I have Blackbird cider, Ghost Lantern cider. And so it's a cider made with a hint of ghost pepper that gives it just a nice little tingle on the back of the tongue. And in that, I've added some 1 Foot Cock maple cask whiskey. It's a local Buffalo distillery.
Oh,
Um,
fun.
And so's the cider place.
Oh,
So
that's
a Buffalo
fantastic.
maker.
Cool.
And what about you, Sean? What are you drinking?
So I have two today. One because I was worried that I would drink through all of this because it's a very sweet drink. And so the thing I made is this is a jungle bird, I think is what it's called, which I tried desperately to see if there was like a He-Man cocktail that I could actually make with any ingredients available to me within a 50-mile radius, and no, that's not possible. There was also no Masters of the Universe cocktail, although if you want to get a bunch of tiki like beverage drinks for various He-Man characters, you can get those, and there is supposedly a bar in some city that's probably New York that makes cocktails named after things from He-Man, but they did not provide any recipes. Oh. Jerks. So I couldn't do it. So I made a Jungle Bird. Jungle Bird has dark rum, usually has some form of Italian red bitters. I used Apersol because it's a little bit more orangey, a little sweeter, and I didn't want to waste my Campari for a mixed drink because Campari is expensive. And I love Campari.
What is
Campari? Campari is also an Italian bitters. It is very fragrant. It's got a nice bite to it. It's hard to describe. They use it in a Negroni or a Garibaldi.
Oh, okay.
But I really like it, but it is definitely like you either like Campari, you don't like Campari. But it's in that same kind of camp as like a Jägermeister or anything in that, like where it's a bunch of herbs and then made into like a bitter liqueur. Yeah, I don't know what's in Campari, actually. It's probably like human blood. So, but Campari's very good. But there's a bunch of different like Italian liqueurs that are like slightly bitter. Apersol is just a little bit sweeter. It's more orangey. A little less intensely better than Campari. I like Campari better. But in any case, there's that. There is pineapple juice, some lime juice, and a little bit of simple syrup just for a little bit of extra sweetness. The rums I used in this was the last of my Bacardi, whatever the black rum, Bacardi Superior black rum I had left, which I think was like half a shot. And then I used some Kraken.
Some Kraken, ooh. So there actually is a Masters of the Universe related cocktail
Wait, what?
He's not in the movie, but one of Skeletor's minions from the toy line and the cartoon and the comics is Whiplash. And so there is a Whiplash cocktail. It is brandy, sweet vermouth, dry vermouth, and triple sec.
I have all of those.
So if you
Hold on,
need a
digestive,
yeah, lift that up. But
it's a little late for me to go get it. No.
No, as I was looking at the characters, I was like, Whiplash, that sounds like one.
I did have a chaser. I saw this at the store. I realized it's probably reversing the image. It's a Michelob Amberbuck, their dark lager. I decided to try it because some of the big breweries have done okay stuff of like more limited run, a little bit more flavorful stuff. And I'm just going to tell you that Michelob, fucking fix yourself. Because if this is what you call an Amberbuck, you need to fire your brewmasters. Like, they even have the audacity to put like these little like medals on here, like they fucking won anything for this. Like, come on, they're
Sats medals.
It says an American rock-style lager brewed with 3 unique malts, including roasted and caramel specialty malts. Bullshit. None of that is in here. It is carbonated water. That's
really?
What this is.
It's that dilute?
It's
and
just
flavorless?
Watch this. Watch. I'm going to taste it and you're going to see my face. There's just nothing. There's like a hint of like there might have been flavor once. But it's like they filtered out all the flavor. I don't understand how they did it.
They diluted it down and added caramel coloring, probably.
I guess. Like, it's just... I was really sad because I was like, I want kind of a dark beer or something, maybe like a brown or like an amber.
There's no like Shinerbuck?
They probably had it. I just wanted to try something different. And I made a mistake for trusting...
Now you're paying?
...a large beer brand. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, though. Some of them do have things that aren't half bad.
Yeah,
the limited release or that.
Yeah, like Coors has a couple of stuff that's like their smaller release stuff that is, I mean, I wouldn't rate it really high, but it's, it's got okay flavor. And this one just, I don't understand. I think like when you suggested that they might have put like caramel color in it, like it might just be Michelob with caramel color.
Right.
Because it doesn't taste, there's just nothing to it. It's just like, it just makes me sad. Like, what's the point? Why bother making, like, the only reason you make this, like, I'm sorry, I'm really getting, like, I'm a beer snob right now.
That was a
The
beautiful
only
quote.
reason you make this is you want to kill things that could cause, like, gut problems because you're living in the post-apocalypse. That's it. It's the only reason you make this. You don't make this because, like, gosh, I need a good drink. You make this just so that you don't get fucking dysentery because you're drinking out of an old stream. It's just sad. Like, you can do better than this.
Up until the very end of that, everything you said was also completely applicable to this movie. I
mean, you're not wrong.
I don't know if it would give you intestinal problems, though, per se.
I mean, you don't have to eat this movie or drink it,
if this
you wouldn't
movie were a food or a beverage, it would be causing dysentery, though, I think.
Oh, 100%. This
just
movie's
Gwildor
like,
alone.
This movie's like if you go to a state fair, but it's not one of the good states. That's what this movie's like.
Delaware State Fair.
Is the Delaware State Fair bad?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of states that...
We're going to get so much hate mail from Delaware.
It's small.
They're going to be like, no, our state fair's good. It's definitely not Minnesota's. I mean, other than the people, the Minnesota State Fair is pretty nuts. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
I've never been to a state fair, actually, so...
I mean, I would tell you to
near
go,
a city,
but...
then there was never a thing, really, so...
Do they not have a state fair in New York?
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, but outside Philly. And they have fairs like in rural areas, like county fairs, and I'm sure there was a state fair somewhere, but...
Do not all states have state fairs?
If we were to go to something, we'd go to, like, Philadelphia. I'm sure Pennsylvania has one. I don't know if every state has one.
I know that California has one, because I lived there. I don't remember if Florida has one. If so, it's probably just in a swamp. So, I don't know. But anyway, in either case, we got to get to this movie, and I have elected you to explain this movie, even though you didn't know that until this exact moment. Because I actually still don't fully understand what this fucking movie is. Other than, like, they need to get the Grayskull. Like, that's the only thing I know
for this movie. So, So if you don't know anything about He-Man or Masters of the Universe, and you come into the theater or into your home cinema and turn on this movie, I'm guessing you have no fucking idea what's going on. Because the movie does absolutely nothing to sort of set the exposition or provide context for what is going on, other than in the most vague, general kind of sense. And part of that is because it drops you into the action, as it were. Or no, I shouldn't say that. It drops you into right after all the action happened, into a post-battle kind of. And so Skeletor, who is evil, has invaded Castle Grayskull for power. And those familiar with Masters of the Universe will know that the power of the ancients of the planet Eternia is housed in Grayskull. And that power is also what gives He-Man his power to fight the forces of evil. So constantly throughout the toy line mythos and the TV series, we have a visitor, Skeletor is trying to, with the help of his minions, get into Castle Grayskull to capture the power in there. Aside from He-Man, the Castle Grayskull and the power of the ancients is protected by a sorceress. The movie begins with Skeletor in Grayskull. The sorceress is captured. Eternian forces have been decimated, and Skeletor's troops are kind of running rampant. This has apparently happened because Skeletor was able to get hold of some magical key, which is this device that looks like a probe or a coffee thermos with big pointy stuff sticking out of it that twirls.
Or a musical instrument,
perhaps.
Or
a musical, or a Japanese synthesizer, if you want. That was invented by this short creature named Gwildor, and I don't even remember the name of his species. I don't think it was ever in the show. Anyway, from this other species, non-humanoid species or non-human species.
It's basically a space dwarf.
A space dwarf, yeah. And so Gwildor has invented this thing. Skeletor stole it, but Gwildor is captured by Skeletor's forces, though not in Grayskull, like outside. And He-Man and his friend Man-at-Arms and Man-at-Arms' daughter Teela see Gwildor captured and rescue him. So again, we're at a point here, like, who the hell are Man-at-Arms and Teela? If you don't know Masters of the Universe and He-Man, you might have no idea. And the movie does absolutely nothing that I recall to kind of give you any kind of foundation for who these characters are. And so Man-at-Arms is the Man-at-Arms head of armaments and head of defense of the Eternian Kingdom. And so he's in charge of protecting the actual city of the humans that live on Eternia under the king and queen, who aren't even in this movie. Teela is his adopted daughter, though in the show mythos, it's either heavily implied or outright said that it actually is his real daughter with the sorceress. The movie doesn't go into this at all. So Teela and Man-at-Arms are there because why would you have interesting character development or character traits in a movie?
Why would no? That's
utterly,
never. You would never do
utterly
that.
unnecessary. We can save that for the human characters because the Earthlings. Anyway,
yeah, as you do.
They rescue Gwildor. Gwildor happens to have a backup key. I think it's like his prototype that he made. And the gist of this key is that when you make it do weird synthesizer type things and the bladey things spin around on top of the thermos, it opens up a portal to places. And this is what Skeletor used to get into Grayskull, apparently, before the movie started, which Grayskull has like tons of magical protections. It makes no sense you'd be able to use this thing to get in. But whatever. He does. They use this backup or prototype one to get into Grayskull to try to stop Skeletor. Skeletor kicks their asses, but it's actually not much of a battle. It's unclear why, but somehow they get scared and they decide to run away. And so they use the key to open up a portal, but since they're fleeing and rushed, they don't really know where this portal's going. It ends up taking them to Earth. So Teela, Man-at-Arms, and He-Man are now on Earth with the prototype key. And
Gwildor.
And Gwildor, sorry. And I think they might actually steal the actual later key as well. They use like a grappling hook to take it out of... Whether there's two keys or ones becomes confusing at this point to me. Sorceress is still a prisoner. Skeletor's still in Grayskull. And as soon as the next moonrise happens, again, for reasons unknown, that will allow Skeletor to get the power. So Skeletor's afraid the fact that they escaped with the key, doesn't know where they're at, but when the Eternians, He-Man, Gwildor, Teela, and Man-at-Arms, also known as Duncan, get transported to Earth, somehow, because it needs to happen for the plot of the movie, the key gets lost from them, and it gets found by two Earthlings named, do you remember their names? Courtney and Tom Paris. It's Courtney Cox.
It's Monica and Tom Paris. That's
Paris,
all you need to know.
So yeah. Monica and Tom Paris find the key, and Tom Paris thinks that it's some new Japanese synthesizer, and so he takes it to Charlie. Oddly enough, I remember the owner of the music store they go to, Charlie, the secondary character. I remember his name.
They keep yelling his name in this movie.
That must be why. Yeah. But when they activate it to play the weird music, Evil Lyn, one of Skeletor's henchmen, is able to track it, and so Skeletor sends some of his minions to Earth to recover the key. They fight with Man-at-Arms and Teela. The bad guys run away at this point back to Eternia, away from Earth. Skeletor kills one of the minions for having failed in their duties. So Sorod, actually probably one of the most interesting of the villains.
Yeah, because he's a snake man.
He gets vaporized. Yeah, he's like a reptilian type thing. And the snake men were actually supposed to be in this movie originally. It would have been way better if the Horde had been in, because the Horde is the best. But still, if Snake Men would have been in it might have been cool. Anyway.
Yeah, keep flexing that nerd credit.
Yes, I try. We gotta have something here. So at this point, Skeletor now sends Evil Lyn, his trusted number one, I guess, with the other minions back and says, do it right this time and get He-Man, get the key back. They go back.
Which they do.
They open up a portal to allow Skeletor to come back in this awesome parade float. Unfortunately, there's no crowd of people there to cheer on Skeletor other than his army.
Yeah, the most unpopulated city you've ever seen. Fucking nobody calls 911.
LA Wasteland.
Nothing's going on. It's bizarre. Like, right? Like,
they could only afford Monica and Tom Paris and Charlie. Those are the only.
And don't forget Monica's mom.
Well, Monica's mom is the sorceress, yes.
Yeah.
But actual Earthlings, we can only have 3.
We can only
4,
have 3.
because there's also, I completely forgot about the police officer who is played by, I'm going to look this up, James Tolkien. He plays Detective Hugh Lubbock. And if you don't recognize his name, he's also the guy who plays the principal in Back to the Future 1, Back to the Future 2, and he's the sheriff in Back to the Future 3. He essentially...
I call him Discount Ed Harris, because he kind of sounds like and looks a little bit like Ed Harris, but he's not the Ed Harris you want.
No. But he does the same exact kind of role he does in Back to the Future here. Yeah. With the same kind of personality and lines. So somehow Skeletor comes to, I don't know why he shows up really on Earth, other than to get because Evil Lyn has already gotten the key. She tricks Monica by pretending to be Monica's dead mother. So, this is an important point. Monica's parents died in a plane crash at some point, and so they're dead, and she mourns them. But Evil Lyn pretends, like she cloaks herself and pretends to be kind of like Dark Helmet in Spaceballs, pretends to be Princess Vespa's father. Evil Lyn pretends to be her dead mother, and Monica somehow buys this whole thing and turns the key over to her mother, who is actually Evil Lyn. So Skeletor shows up, but why he's doing this when he should be back in Grayskull, ready for the Moonrise to get the power. The only thought I have is he's after He-Man and He-Man's sword, because the sword is also really linked to Grayskull's power. But again, the movie doesn't really explain this much. But they fight with some somewhat cool air surfboard discs that also appear in the cartoon as well. I don't remember how, but somehow things go back to Eternia. Oh, they capture the good guys. So Skeletor captures the good guys, take them in chains back to Castle Grayskull, rather than killing them, to witness Skeletor's grasp of power upon the Moonrise. But He-Man, kind of like Samson from the Book of Judges in the Bible, like calls on his strength, manages to grab the sword, does the iconic "I have the power," even though he's already He-Man. And why he's doing it at that point, I'm not sure. But he doesn't do it too well, but he gets the power. He and Skeletor have a sword fight. Skeletor falls down a big pit a la Palpatine, and the sorceress is freed, and the other minions kind of run away. And then a very bad epilogue.
Wait, hold on.
Did I miss something?
No. You didn't miss it, because when we watched it last night, we're recording the day after we did the live chat, you had jokingly referenced whether or not there was a post-credit scene, but like
there
our
is.
Amazon stream, there is.
Yeah.
The Amazon stream just automatically was like, nah, fuck this. We're going to go to whatever the next movie is. And I didn't catch it in time, so I was like, nah, whatever. There must not be a post-credit scene, right? But there is. Apparently, Skeletor emerges from the bottom of the pit out of the water and says, I'll be back.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest post-credit scenes in a movie, I think.
I can't believe we missed that. You know, we might have really needed that in order for this film to be good.
They tried to make a sequel as well.
They did.
It did not happen.
So this film is partly, not alone, but partly responsible for the closure of Canon Films, one of the production companies behind this, because they also were behind the film Superman 4, which was also on the poll this year, and a film called Life Force, all of which didn't do well.
Have you seen Life Force?
No,
I
I don't know that I want to.
I haven't really.
Oh, it's a
either,
Tobe
but
Hooper film.
It's a
so
Tobe
probably
Hooper.
shit.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah,
I can
I know
already
it's
tell you.
sci-fi, but I don't know too much. Anyway,
I know people love Tobe Hooper, but I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and I was just like,
oh, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I like horror.
I guess
a
I
lot.
just never found that very good. I just don't get it.
Uh,
I feel like there are better movies.
there's like a perverted charm to it. I don't know. The second one is even more crazy, though. Have you seen the second
is
one?
it?
It has Dennis Hopper in it. It has wacky
that's
lines.
interesting.
He plays the like crazed uncle of one of the kids that was killed in the first movie, and so he's basically out hunting the family for revenge.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
It's
Okay.
I want to say Tobe Hooper directed that one too, actually. But in any case, it's an underrated sequel, I think.
Okay, interesting. Well, maybe Life Force will end up on our, because I'm pretty sure it's not highly rated.
No.
Welcome to the stream, KelSwitch01, Configuration Queen. I also didn't say hello, but welcome to the stream as well to you. We did have some questions that came up while you were trying desperately to make this movie make sense. One of them was from Karturo, who's also here. Welcome, Karturo. You get 3,000 points. What would they have at the Eternia State Fair?
Ooh.
They would not have meat. Because as we learn in this movie, the consumption of meat is not considered acceptable. They are all either vegetarians or vegans, I guess.
Or at least Tila is.
Or at least Tila is, yeah. I suppose it did seem like
palace,
Wildor was not particularly happy
Right.
about eating it,
Yeah.
but seemed that he could be converted because he did find the barbecue wings to be particularly
Tasty,
good.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
Duncan must have had it in the past, at least.
He must have.
Yeah.
He also took a very pragmatic approach of like when you're starving, you take what you can get. So, which is fair.
The Eternian State Fair would be effectively a Renaissance fair. Because that's, at least from the cartoon, that's pretty much what all the fairs and festivities that they had were.
Oh.
They'd have like troops that did acting and performances and juggling and acrobatics and
Aw.
such. And there'd
That's
probably
kinda
be
sweet.
like lots of cute little creatures that they'd have, like how state fairs have like the agricultural components.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if they'd have agricultural, but they'd probably have lots of cute creatures as well. And magic tricks. Lots of magic tricks.
They'd probably have beer.
They would, yeah. Of some kind.
Yeah, some kind of
Mead.
like. Actually, I feel like it'd be mead. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be mead. None of that regular beer shit. If they
Mead
had beer,
and wine. And...
or if they had beer, it would be like that kind of beer that, not like an IPA, which is what hipsters think puts hair on your chest, but like a spruce beer.
Mhm.
You know, like
one that really
something
tastes like pine needles.
Yeah, like really gets you just gets you deep down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah. So well, okay.
So
look,
these
this
movies
movie.
all
Go ahead.
I was talking with a friend tonight about this, and he made the point that this was an era when each movie that was made, including sequels, they just put less money into them. It's like, this movie's a success, do another one for less, do another one for less. And Superman 4 kind of falls into that. And to some degree, this is too, because originally the studio and the director had wanted to do apparently a Spider-Man movie.
Oh.
And that was the plan. But then, rather than do a Spider-Man, they weren't allowed to have a budget for that. They said, do 2 movies for the price of one. So rather than doing one Spider-Man movie and putting all of your hopes and dreams into that and all your money, do a Superman movie and do a Masters of the Universe movie for half the cost, or for the same cost, 2 for 1.
And with Superman 4, they did technically make a little bit, but it wasn't very much. Because I think it was, oh God, what was Superman's budget? I think there 17 million was the budget, and they made 36.7 million. So maybe, based on how the studio math would have been back in the 80s, maybe they would have made money.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, they definitely lost money, because they spent 22 million on it, but they only made 17.3, which means they lost even more than that just based on advertising budget. So,
and for a while, Mattel hadn't put up their half of the money also, apparently.
Right. This had
So,
huge production woes.
issues,
The
yeah.
final fight between He-Man and Skeletor was done basically by the director and a skeleton crew and it had to be self-financed by the director because Mattel wouldn't put its money up. This is a reminder that they should have looked into what happened. Well, they couldn't have because it came out the year after. They should have looked up what happened with Mac and Me, which is you need to figure out how your contracts work for the people that are supposed to give you money and then force them in court to do it. Because McDonald's didn't really want to finance Mac and Me, but they had signed a licensing merchandising deal and basically had no choice. They got forced partly into it. Now, I'm not saying that Mac and Me necessarily proved McDonald's wrong. They were probably correct to not want to be part of it, except that I think Mac and Me is actually an exceptional movie.
No.
No, you be quiet, Daniel. It's a great movie. It is a great movie of all of the ways that American propaganda has penetrated the film industry.
It is a perfect exemplar of that, yes.
Come on, they literally become U.S. citizens, have a nuclear family, and drive away in a pink caddy at the end. What? It's utterly bizarre.
Do they have dead parents resurrected?
Well, I don't know. I maybe? Because does Mars we don't know. We know nothing about Mars in Mac and Me. We really don't.
No.
It's so confusing. So, but in any case, this movie did not do well. It had many, many problems. I will just say that Frank Langella did do this movie for the very same reasons that what's his name from the Street Fighter movie who played M. Bison. The name is escaping me at the moment. He did it kind of for the same reason that Frank Langella did it, which is apparently he had a young son who was really into it, and it was I'm just going to do this role for my kid. Raul Julia in the chat, yeah.
Huh.
Who did M. Bison in the Street Fighter movie, which is notoriously not a good movie. It really isn't a good movie. Trust me, it's not. But Raul Julia is just hamming it up and just really going for it and having fun. And
he's great.
He's really great in general. I mean, for heaven's sake, he was in Addams Family. He's so good.
I didn't even realize he was in Street Fighter. I've never seen it.
Yeah, he was M. Bison. That movie's awful in every way you can imagine, but once you realize that Raul Julia is just doing it for his kids he's dying of cancer at this point, so of course he's leaving his kids something like a present, basically. Yeah. And that's kind of beautiful. I will never hate that Street Fighter movie for that exact reason. So, and Frank Langella, I mean, obviously he wasn't dying when he made this, but he still did it for his kids, and I can have respect for he wanted to do
everything into it, yeah.
He's clearly having fun. Yeah. He's really enjoying.
And he wanted to do another.
I bet he did, because he probably had a good time.
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren apparently did not enjoy his time on this film.
I've heard conflicting things about that.
He supposedly said he didn't enjoy it.
Yeah,
he called it a nightmare,
yeah,
didn't he?
Well, yes, but then later interviews that were done with him, he said that he actually enjoyed aspects of it and appreciated it, particularly in that it was one of the few movies he could show to his kids. And so similar to Frank Langella, he thought all of his other movies he could never actually let his kids watch him in, and this one he could. So.
Okay, I mean, yeah, because most of Dolph Lundgren, the stuff he's most known for, pretty aggressive action movies of the 80s and 90s. Yeah. A little
bloody
bit much.
Ones.
So
yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, Ultimate Soldier and stuff like that, yeah. I could see that. But, okay, that's interesting. So maybe that story is not entirely true. Look, all I'm saying is any trivia that we find is a 50-50 shot. Right. It ain't correct.
It's on the internet. So, it's got to be true.
Yeah. I will say that my favorite thing about Masters of the Universe that I've ever read was that when Dolph Lundgren made this, he had basically no acting experience. He spoke English with a very thick Swedish accent, and he was not fluent in English, which means he didn't really speak the language. Because when you say you're not fluent, that means you really don't speak the language that well. But somehow he got his contract so that he had 3 chances. I don't know why 3, but he had 3 shots to redub his lines in post-production with better results. Because originally Goddard wanted to have his lines dubbed by another actor because
the studio
frankly
said
Dolph
no.
Lundgren's, yeah. Well, no, apparently Lundgren, Goddard just said, okie dokie. Like, we like his voice better.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that it's fine because he
Oh,
has
yeah,
like
just-
all of
it's-
7 lines anyway.
Right.
So, but you could tell like half the time he doesn't quite know what he's saying.
He just kind of
Like-
has that look on his face though all the time, really,
He
of
does.
being somewhat clueless. But it's
It's a little sad.
I had no problem as a kid or even now with Dolph Lundgren in this movie per se. I wish they would have taken advantage of how he spoke and what he was like though to actually put Prince Adam in the movie. To have like a different actor, somebody that looked completely different, didn't speak with an accent, something like that to really show a difference between He-Man and Prince Adam.
No, you can't have everything,
Alas,
Daniel.
I know. So did you
Well,
see something about that Goddard had wanted to make this a New Gods movie and hire Jack Kirby?
no,
To
but
be-
it had been brought up by Jeff Patterson.
Okay.
That I think that came up earlier that Jeff Patterson pretends it's a bad New Gods adaptation. That came
Yeah.
up in chat a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But there is a Jack Kirby reference for the creation of this film, and I imagine you know that. So go on, tell us.
I don't, because I don't
Oh.
I don't know much about Jack Kirby or New Gods. I vaguely know a few things from the Superpowers line of action figures as a kid. And I know Darkseid and a few things from Justice League. Anyway, Skeletor's a proxy for Darkseid, but I do
Yeah.
know that the director had wanted to hire Jack Kirby to be a production designer for the movie or consultant, and the studio said no. He then put a dedication at the end of the credits to Jack Kirby for inspiration, and the studio made him take it out. So I don't know why the studio was so anti-associating this with DC or Jack Kirby. But that's as much as I know. But
The thing I do know is that Jack Kirby, so it has been compared because I think comic book artist John Byrne, if I remember the trivia correctly, basically said that Master of the Universe is a New Gods movie and that Frank Langella's Skeletor is basically like he uses the phrase, and I'm going to put quotes around this, a dandy Darkseid. I think he means that in the less polite meaning of the word dandy.
Yeah.
And apparently, that Goddard was pleased that someone got the reference, that he was glad that Byrne got the reference, but, it appears that there was attempts to make those honors of Kirby's influence on the film, but really in a lot of ways, like, this is just studio meddling bullshit. I mean, even like Mattel refusing to pay their end of the bargain. It's just more of that kind of stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that like everybody gives shit to like George Lucas for the fact that he like wants to do things his own way, and it's like, but you also need to remember the number of directors who've had to fight with studios
that get screwed
over
this.
seemingly innocuous shit, like putting Jack Kirby buried in the credits somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? That's the thing a studio is gonna say no to? Really? This is stupid. It's really ridiculous. There are some links in chat from Jeff Patterson. I will put them in the
show notes.
I'll put them in the show notes for folks at home who will be listening to this later, so that you can do a little bit of look. It's a CBR and a Screen Rant article that'll probably give a little more background. But that's
kind of what I meant when we were talking before we started the podcast of how this movie is kind of a mess. Almost like Brothers Grimm in that studio director vision fight versus changes. Like, it's trying to be a movie based on a toy line for Mattel, but then it's also trying to be the director's vision of a movie that's really not Masters of the Universe at all. It's using Masters of the Universe structure to explore something like to explore New Gods and themes from that. And so between those things and between the actors they ended up getting and reduced budget, it turns into this mess of not really being a film for any audience.
It's a very confused film.
Market. Yeah.
It does have some interesting stuff in it, and I suppose we'll use that as
Our
our
likes.
opportunity now to get
Yes.
to our likes, because I'll get my first like out of the way. I have
Ooh.
very little connection to original He-Man. So I don't have any of those personal connections. I know Cora Buellert is going to be probably listening to this and then writing a very long email yelling at us for all the shit we get wrong. Even though Daniel is clearly a fan, but I'm going to get yelled at by Cora. And I just want you to know, Cora, that I adore you and I think you're brilliant. And this is not meant as an attack on you in any meaningful way.
I can't wait to hear what she thinks. But you're about to talk about a like, so she might think that
Yes.
this is wonderful.
This came up in our live chat, which is I love the key and the concept of the key, because it's this machine that's got these little spires and bits and baubles that come off. But when you push buttons, they play these amazing 80s synth like chords and sounds, and of course, like, it makes sense why he would think it's a musical instrument, because he's pushing buttons and sounds are coming out. And they're really intense and big. They're like huge sounds. It sounds like you're in an arena. And I love the first part was like, if this isn't an instrument, because I know it's not, but if it wasn't, it's fucking cool anyway. And if it is an instrument, it's like the coolest instrument in the world, because that sound is just, mwah, it's a chef's kiss. But then on top of that, there's this bit in there about, like, the universe is, like, governed by music. And so, like, you can control traveling through space and time through manipulations of music. And I find that utterly fascinating. That, I mean, they don't explore it in any meaningful way, but it's such a cool idea that you know, the thing that, like, they did a good setup. I'll say this. They did a good setup because Tom Paris that's not his actual name, but we're calling him Tom Paris. His whole thing is, like, he's a high school musician in the 80s, which, you know, he fashions himself to be a legit musician. But, like, because of that, it means that he has, to some degree, an innate talent that makes it so he can understand this device's properties, because it's based in music. It's based in musical theory. They just don't explore that in really any depth. I love it. It's such a cool idea. I would love to see that explored at, like, way more depth in anything else other than this movie, because the idea that music, not just as, like, mathematical language, but, like, as a universal language in the universe itself, a thing you can use to communicate with powers we don't understand. That's such a cool, like, I mean, it's new wavy space age bullshit, but it's still really cool.
No, 100%. I agree with that. And that music is just so wonderful to hear, because the score isn't the greatest. It's more derivative. The music provided by the sound effects of that key and that synth, kind of like how the synth playing in the music background in Stranger Things just elicits such strong emotional resonance. The key does that in this, despite anything that might be going on screen. And they do kind of, like, they have a nugget there of something interesting. What you were saying, and as I thought about it, as we were watching it, I thought this would be a perfect plot device or object to take from Masters of the Universe and put into Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes!
Because it's particularly the sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, where they have, what is Station, I think, the alien? Because Station is kind of like, he looks a lot like Wildor. I could totally see Station, the musician from the future, playing the cosmic key with that synth music, because it perfectly fits that era of Bill and Ted as well. And, and it fits the message of the movies of Bill and Ted as well.
Yeah, I love that 80s sound a lot. It's one of the many things I just love about the 80s, is there's so much experimentation with like electronic sound. And hearing it, because when you mentioned the soundtrack, right? Because the beginning of the soundtrack, we all went like, well, that's Star Wars, or that's like Superman, and then this is Star Wars, and like, yeah, like all of these things. But then, you know, and it feels super derivative. It feels kind of empty. It just doesn't resonate. It doesn't have it doesn't feel like it's He-Man. And while I'm not saying the 80s sound effects from the key are He-Man, because they're kind of not, there is something super unique about that in a way that the rest of the soundtrack doesn't have. Like when those like musical sounds start coming out, like you're just kind of for a moment kind of mesmerized and taken out, and you're just sort of going, whoa, this is kind of, I feel like if I were on acid right now, I would be having an experience.
Yes. They're awesome in the literal sense of
Yes.
that word, really. And it helps with like the light effects that it produces too. It's almost like a drug trip, I guess. But
It is kind of a drug trip. They're all, I love that they think it's a Japanese synthesizer.
Yeah.
It's just like, to these poor people in the 80s, like, Japanese technology is so alien at this point. Like, yeah, okay, it makes sense. This could be a Japanese synthesizer, because why not? It's a very much an 80s reference to sort of the rise of the 80s, the Japanese, like, car industry.
and game,
you know.
and because it was right around the same time as NES.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, I'm just finally watching 4th season of Stranger Things, which they also reference in Stranger Things season 4 with a fake story of the America's answer to the Nintendo Entertainment System and such. the Americtendo, or whatever they call it.
American Nintendo. Good lord. Well, okay.
Anyways.
Well, let's get to your like. What's your like?
Which one do I go for? I'll go for
That's
the
the
obvious
question.
one first, because it's the first one I can think of. Frank Langella. He is just, as we've mentioned before, he is fabulous in the movie. He gives the role his all, but he gives it depth and a weight that nobody else in the movie seems to be doing. And that came to even like making his own lines up for the movie.
Yeah.
And one of the really famous ones that is out there, I'm going to look it up just so I don't get it wrong. He's talking at the very end of the movie about when He-Man is captured, and he talks about how He-Man's friends have abandoned him. And he's like,
tell me about the
Yeah.
loneliness of good, He-Man. Is it equal to the loneliness of evil?
Which is
Yeah.
a perfect summation of Skeletor, because Skeletor is always about I'm evil, I'm evil, I'm evil. But at the same time, throughout everything of Skeletor, and Skeletor likes being evil, but at the same time, Skeletor is lonely. He feels the isolation and he craves this connection. And
Aw.
it makes you actually feel for Skeletor a little bit here in that moment. So yeah, moments like that. And there are another like of the movie, I guess, that goes along with that, not related to Frank Langella, is there are bits and pieces where you're like, whoa, you're shocked because there's a really cool line. Or there's something really funny that is said, like when Tom Paris and Monica respond to a question that either one of the other heroes asks, and like one answers yes, definitely, and the other one's like, no way, at the same time.
Yeah.
And so there's like a few moments of humor that work here and there that kind of rise above the rest of the movie, and they rise above enough to actually make you enjoy it.
There aren't very many, though.
No, there's not that many. But
It's a weirdly humorless film. Like,
but they make the overall boredom of so much of it. Because you're falling asleep, and then all of a sudden there's at least a nugget to make you say, oh, there's something interesting to get your mind going. Or something
there's
that's
like-
cool.
they're super cool, like, characters. Because, like, a Karg, played by Robert
Karg,
Towers,
yeah.
who folks might know from Star Trek Next Generation. I think he played a Ferengi
I can
in
see
that,
that.
which makes a lot of sense. I will just say that I hate the Ferengi, and so I will never rewatch that episode because I can't stand the Ferengi. But, Karg is just a bananas character. He's got, like, the most 80s hair rock band.
Bouffant, kind of B-52s.
Yeah, like, it's just,
Bouffant.
like, all the way down. Like, he is, like, Guns N' Roses on steroids. But he's such a cool looking character, and even the way he talks is kind of cool, and you're just like, oh, this is a neat idea. Tease these out some more. There's like moments where it's like they got the costuming right and the like the face prosthetics right so that it doesn't feel like someone in a mask. Which unfortunately for Frank Langella, sometimes the mask just his Skeletor face doesn't work right for the lines he needs to say, so he actually has to overact in order to get the mouth to work.
Right.
And
He ends up making that work, despite those prosthetics.
He
despite
does,
that
I
mask.
think, after the beginning, because at the very beginning, he sort of is a little understated, but when he stops being understated with the presentation, you get more of the motion, and he feels more like a full person. But, yeah. He reminded me very much, there's a Captain America movie from around this era as well, I think from 1990. Not a very good movie, but they got some guy to play Red Skull, who also was like fighting his prosthetics because they're trying to make him look like he's literally a Red Skull. But it's the same thing. Like, here's this person who really has a lot of charisma in their acting, trying desperately to act through a bunch of fucking plastic.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy task. I give Langella a lot of credit here.
As a kid, I really didn't like the other villains because so many of them weren't from the toy line or the show.
Oh.
Well, they were added to the toys once the movie came out, though Karg was absent from that. But
is he still absent?
No, Masters of the Universe Classics has made a Karg action figure. I think.
Oh, good.
I think
Karg is
Mattel
cool.
from the Classics line has made basically everybody at this point, or near.
Okay, good.
But I would have loved one, as a kid, perhaps for Karg. But anyway, they did do Sora, they did Blade, and Beastman and Evelyn had been established characters. And I just remember as a kid being very disappointed that there weren't other well-known characters in there. Karg, to some extent, has Trapjaw type characteristics, somewhat, like with the hook. I don't know much beyond that.
I love how you're saying words to me like I fucking know what you're talking about right now.
The fans will know.
the fans
out there.
You could just make up like Tiddlywinks, and I'd be like, sure, that's a character from He-Man if you say so.
And Sorad could be like a tongue lasher or something. But I wish there would have been some of those other really cool villains in this. But now watching it, I'm actually impressed. I really like Karg. I wish Sorad had been in longer.
Me too.
I enjoyed Blade's fights, the choreography of that. The actor choreographed most of the fights, and particularly the end ones I thought worked pretty well. Despite trying to make them into Star Wars. No, they weren't.
They're all bad.
The sword fights were all right. The special effects added to them were bad.
Okay, hold the fort. No. Because the very first sword fight we get is like 800 cuts showing parts of weapons and parts of hands moving, but we never see any actual connections between any weapon or fist or face. And that sets the tone for what is going to be the quality of our combat for the rest of the movie. Right? This is not
Did they
John
film
Wick.
that earlier as well because of Mattel's influence of what violence they could show? I don't know. I swear I block out the whole beginning of this movie and just know the end, because the end is the best part of this movie, I think.
I'll give you that. The end is the
final
best part.
fight I actually really like, and the sword fight in there I thought is good, absent the special effects.
I mean, at least they didn't do the thing where like Arnold in one of the Conan movies like does one of those like whoop 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 behind his back and everything, but it's like really awkward because it doesn't flow normally. And I'm like,
those swords are heavy, so to me that's actually more realistic than. It's not like they're fighting with lightsabers.
That's a fair point.
Right.
Although he does block
they try to
less.
make it, but
yeah.
But
that's a fair point.
And Beastman and Evelyn, I actually now rewatching it, I like way more than I did as a kid, and I see the connections to those characters more than I did when I was a kid.
So Meg Foster, who plays Evelyn, very aptly named character. Apparently, there were comments made about how they really liked how effective her contact lenses were, but yet she doesn't have contacts because her eyes have those sort of bluish, sort of grayish irises, and those tiny pupils are kind of naturally what her eyes look like. So she has a naturally very somewhat, well, what we would conventionally consider to be sort of dark, somewhat evil or sinister appearance. Mm-hmm. And so she's joked about how casting directors, apparently she said in interviews, like they view that she has said that it's like they view me as like a free special effect because they don't have to pay for anything to get those eerie eyeballs because I've already got
They're right
them.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is true. Meg Foster's face in this is, when they do close-up shots of it, I mean, you definitely believe the character is a little bit
Sinister.
evil.
Yeah.
Very sinister by default. The costume choices are a little interesting. I will say there were a number of costume choices where I was like, they just want us to look at their not at their faces. They want us to look at other parts of their bodies. Because what they accentuated at times, it's like, well, I get what you're going for here. Like,
to be fair, have you seen the action figures?
I mean, no, but let's be real. He-Man is basically in a Speedo.
Yeah.
So I just want you to keep that in mind. Like, and let's be real too.
Evelyn's, what's it called? Not bodice, but the breastplate that she has to wear.
Right.
It was like
she
so heavy on her, like she had to like basically thrust out her chest.
Yeah.
And so it like the action figures, the costumes accentuate, things.
Very much. Yeah. Dolph Lundgren, I will say, looks very nice here. Just gonna
in
say.
the Speedo, yes. And oiled up.
I mean, I appreciate that, like, I like Arnold because he just plays off his, like, very, very big physical physique. Like, he's a meat monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I do appreciate that, but, like, I don't necessarily find it as enjoyable as, like, someone who's more normal fit. Because Arnold's not normal fit. That he's bodybuilder fit. He is a mutant. But Dolph Lundgren's more normal.
Yeah. Back in the day, Arnold's proportions always looked odd to me.
Well,
like the size of the head
shit.
versus everything else. Like Dolph was much more proportioned. Normally,
well, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger does have a big head. I will say that is true. Yeah, but he's nice to look at.
What other do you have from this?
Look, I don't really like much about this movie. It's not very good.
You like Teela?
Teela. Okay, look, my reason for liking Teela is not pure. I'm just gonna say, like, I found her utterly adorable and, like, strikingly beautiful. And I don't know if that's what they were going for, but, like, I found her mesmerizing.
She has such a great 80s vibe. So
she does. She feels like an anime character.
She doesn't,
like with that 80s hair.
As a kid, again, I was bothered by how much she didn't look like Teela, particularly with the costume. She certainly acts like Teela, though, and I appreciate her much more now. But do you know the actress? I was very surprised as I was researching this. Yeah. Do you know who she is married to?
Jesus Christ Superstar?
Scott Bakula.
Oh my
God. It's Scott Bakula and she have been married for a while, apparently.
Good for them.
Which, yeah, good for them. But I was just looking up both she and the guy who plays Man-at-Arms, who they were, because I didn't recognize them from anything per se.
I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
Man-at-Arms has done a lot of theater work, apparently, and sings very well, which he didn't have the opportunity to do in this movie, but...
Not really a lot of places for it in this film.
No, the Teela I thought was really good, and it gets to one of the likes I had as I was watching it is that the movie doesn't go the route of making unnecessary romance and not unnecessary, but it's almost like this movie would pass the Bechdel test.
Does it? Hold the fort.
Does it technically? I'm not sure. Do Monica and Teela have a conversation not about men? I think they do. It's maybe brief. I wasn't paying
attention.
Because the movie doesn't have much of anything in terms of deep
there's no
deep conversation, right? But they have interactions and it's not about men. And Teela is never, it's not like Tom Paris has like all of a sudden attraction towards Teela or showing something to like
there's no triangle.
There's no triangle. There's none of that. And there's the relationship between Monica and Tom Paris. But there's nothing else. And another movie, I would think, would try to make something out of Teela other than what Teela is here. And Teela has always just been a dedicated warrior.
Yeah,
and
you're kind
defender
of
of
pointing.
Eternia. So does that make sense to you? And I like that the movie kept with that and didn't try to put something Hollywood in there.
Yeah, because you're not wrong that what they would do is they would make Teela interested in He-Man, and there's that moment when He-Man finds Monica. I realize we keep calling her Monica. That's not her actual name, and I don't care. But He-Man rescues Monica, and like he says he found a friend or something, and like Teela like makes a snide remark about it. But it's not it. There's nothing we've been given to suggest it's out of jealousy.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like an acknowledgement of like, oh, you did find somebody, didn't you? Oh, okay, boy. Like, I think in a different movie, that line would be presented as jealousy, and maybe that's what they intended. But the movie itself does not set up Teela as a romantic love interest of any way, either as one who is interested in He-Man and just is not reciprocated, or implied in any other context. So I think,
and similarly,
that's
it may
nice.
Imply it somewhat, but it doesn't. It doesn't have that with Evil-Lyn and Skeletor either.
It doesn't. You're right, because Evil-Lyn also does not. I mean, Skeletor shows no real interest in anybody but himself, other than people he wants to destroy.
Right.
Which is kind of a nice choice. Yeah. But I think in a lesser movie, they would have just made Teela like romantically interested in somebody.
Yeah.
I think that like Master of Arms, he comes across as the dad figure in the group, so it wouldn't be him. It would most likely be He-Man in like the modern Hollywood adaptation, which...
Well, yeah, I hope they wouldn't make Teela interested in Man-at-Arms. That would have been disturbing on so many levels.
It's a little weird, because he is very dad. He's very dad figure. So, I agree, but it would be nice if, like, either... if we did a more modern version of He-Man live action, that, like, Teela got to be more warrior.
Yeah.
Because really nobody gets any real substantial action anything. He-Man gets a little bit, but,
and
like...
there's no character development at all.
None. There's none. This movie is, like, nobody grows.
It would have been interesting if they had... Because what the fans of He-Man love most, probably story-wise, is the story arc of Teela. And Teela being related to the sorceress's daughter, and her destined to being the next sorceress, and
that's exciting.
Her wanting to be a warrior and not necessarily wanting to go into that per se.
Yeah, they don't explore that in any meaningful way.
There's tons of interesting routes they could have taken with this movie, but in terms of the really popular lore of He-Man.
Very interesting that Monica's mom would choose somebody other than Monica to be the new sorceress.
Well, in the movie, maybe it would be completely different. But...
Karshura in chat is mentioning that all of the plot points we're talking about are explored in the Netflix animated series, which I have yet to see. So there we go.
Which Netflix? The one
Is there more than one?
Well, there's one Kevin Smith did, which was a continuation of the actual original one.
Oh.
But then they made another one that was more geared towards little kids, which I haven't seen. Yes,
Revelation.
That was the Kevin
Smith
one. Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Yeah, so those plot points might be explored. I mean, let's be real. We're asking a movie from 1987 to do a lot of work that it probably had no hope of ever doing.
No.
So let's be real. So let's get to dislikes, because I'm sure we've got plenty of them. So Daniel, what about you? What's your dislike? What's your main most dislike you dislike?
The main one is just how the movie begins, just throwing you in with no context and not developing things. I've kind of already mentioned that, though. Mention the music. Do you got one offhand? I got to think for a moment.
I'm going to say that I am really tired of Hollywood making movies where snakes or snake people or lizard people, any reptilian is the bad guy, and then killing them off. I'm just tired of it.
Yeah. And I think when we were watching it, it might have been you, it was like, no, not Lizard Man.
Right?
Is that what
why?
And I thought, that's so sad, because there's actually a hero in Masters of the Universe in the cartoon that's name actually is Lizard Man. And he's a good guy. He's from the race of lizards, and he fights with He-Man usually.
it's this like really obnoxious thing that culturally I understand where it comes from, but because we're pretty much all cultures around the globe, some more than others, and there are exceptions to this, but almost all of them are afraid of or demonize anything reptilian, but especially snakes. Mm-hmm. And some cultures may view them not necessarily demonic, but may view them for food sources. So there are cultures that eat iguanas, for example, which I don't necessarily personally agree with, but at least like you have more respect for the animal than just viewing it as demonic. But it's just sort of like, it's just a fundamental human misunderstanding of reptilians that I just find lazy, and I'm just tired of it. Like, stop making them it's 1987, so I guess I can't be that mad about this movie because it was over 30 years ago. But still, like, it's just exhausting. Every single time it's like, it's the lizard person. That one's gonna be evil, because why? Like, but like, why not a fucking alpaca? Right? Or like a llama.
Evil.
Those fuckers spit on people all the time, right?
An evil panda.
Right, an evil panda, right? Those little mooching bastards, right? They eat one food source, and they require
cost like $1 billion to keep.
Right, they're so expensive. Well, those little,
and they won't
little
reproduce.
Right, little bastards. They're selfish, right? That's what I want. I would like to see like panda people that are evil, alpaca people that are evil, llama people that are evil. Like, really obnoxiously annoying, like rams, like otters. Because there's that otter in Santa Cruz right now that they're trying to catch. He has a number. He's stealing people's surfboards right now. He's just a little asshole who goes in and like bites people and takes their surfboards. Like, and they're trying to catch him. He has a number, by the way. He has no name. They just like Otter 9437 or whatever the fuck. And they're still trying desperately to catch him in a Santa Cruz right now. Like, this is what I want. I want all of these other animals that we think are cute but are not actually cute. Orcas are evil.
Dolphins,
they're beautiful animals.
Dolphins are bastards. Yeah.
Dolphins, evil. Chimpanzees, not actually cute. Chimpanzees are lunatics.
Nasty. Bonobos are pretty cool.
I mean, bonobos are alright. I wouldn't necessarily trust a bonobo, but... No, honest question. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, Daniel, and I'll ask you in chat too. This will be for you too. If you could be stuck in a room with a gorilla or a chimpanzee, which would you choose?
Gorilla.
Okay, why?
I could see them more clearly, and because of their size, I would think they'd be more... I'm not a primatologist, but I think they would be more choosy in what they would attack and such, and not fly off the rails as easily. Chimpanzees are really unpredictable, is my sense of things, and they're small, and they're fast. Gorilla are fast too, but I feel like if you just give the gorilla its space and move far away and don't threaten it and act submissive, it's not going to bother you compared 100%. To a chimpanzee being really unpredictable.
This is the correct answer. If anybody ever answers chimp, the only reason they answer chimp is because they think they're going to get a young chimp. Because if it's a young chimp, you're probably fine. Because it may view you as like an adult. It might. But that's true of a young gorilla, so like it doesn't really matter. But adult chimp, nope. The gorilla is the correct choice for all of the exact reasons you listed. Gorillas, look, a gorilla or a chimp, either one of them can kill you and you really can't do anything. You can't defend yourself. You will die in either case. But of the two of them, you're correct that the gorilla is the one that you might be able to, I don't know if reason with is the right exact phrasing, but basically reason with. You may be able to appeal to its, I am not a threat, right? We're simpatico, we're kind of cool. I will not profess to be a climatologist, but I have watched, not a climatologist, sorry, a primatologist. I'm neither of those things. Yes, placate, as Cartero says in chat, I'd be able to placate a gorilla. But everything I have watched documentary-wise from people who actually work with these animals, while you can do that with chimps, gorillas are just easier.
So would you rather face Skeletor or He-Man? Like an evil He-Man?
In battle?
Yeah, and like if you were being threatened by one or the other, because there's a evil version of He-Man called Faker, so you could face an evil He-Man in theory.
I'd rather face Skeletor, and my simple reason would be that statistically he's more likely to lose.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I've got any chance, I gotta go against the one that's more likely to lose. I'm not wrong, though.
No.
That's a completely good answer.
I need a dislike, right?
You do need a dislike.
And I had one, and now it has slipped my mind.
I
got so into the conversation. So one dislike is, this wasn't the one another one I thought of, but one is how much this movie is trying to be like Star Wars. We alluded to it somewhat before, but didn't flat out say it, I guess. One reviewer, I think, actually called this the Star Wars for the 1980s, which I was like, excuse me, that's Return of the Jedi. If there is a Star Wars
Empire
for the
Strikes Back,
or technically Empire, but like the one that is the most 80s vibes to me, and is similar in some respects to this, is Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, that's fair.
But anyway, from the music to the design of Skeletor's troops and the Eternian troops, and the sword battle special effects. Someone, either you or Andrew, was like, they're trying so hard to make this into a Star Wars lightsaber battle. Again and again. It's trying to be Star Wars when it really shouldn't be whatsoever.
Yeah.
That was the dislike. Gwildor.
Oh no.
There are things about Gwildor I do like, so that will be my caveat. But overall, Gwildor is a dislike. And Gwildor exists simply because the movie didn't have the budget to make Orko.
Aww.
The same reason why the movie sent them to Earth is because they didn't have a budget and they couldn't make a movie on Eternia. But because they didn't have a budget, they couldn't make Orko. Orko is shit upon all the time as being an annoying character. As a kid, I liked Orko. That's why they had the character. And I wasn't bothered by him as a kid. I would have loved Orko in the movie. As a kid, I found Gwildor exceptionally annoying and couldn't stand him. Now, I appreciate Gwildor a lot more again than I did as a kid. But at the same time, he's still kind of annoying. And in some ways, I think he's more annoying than an Orko would have been in a live-action movie if done well in terms of effects. So
I agree. Gwildor's not great. I like Billy Barty. Most people might know Billy Barty from Willow. He plays the main wizard in Willow. And he's fun, and he's quirky, and he's got a really interesting way of talking, but this goes back to the, like, every time you go back in time and they're starting to do the, like, prosthetics and stuff thing, it's like, they either have to just get really, overacting everything, or they just look like they're wearing prosthetics, which is a problem. And that just also kind of like, what is this character really there for? It's just to be like comic relief. And it's not really that funny. Like the bit
to
where
show
he's
up
eating...
in sunglasses.
Right.
With like a feather boa or whatever he had.
Giant pink, whatever the fuck that car is. Is it a caddy or whatever?
I don't know.
A monstrous caddy that shoots sparks all the time, because that's normal. Can we talk about the fact that, like, because the budget for this did not allow them to do this, there's, like, nobody else in this movie.
Mm-mm.
Like, here's this, like,
no Eternians, no humans.
None of that. Like, here's this, like, alien dwarf guy, right? He's like a space dwarf, running around in a pink Cadillac or Chevy, whatever the fuck that is, right? With sparks shooting out it.
In a pimp outfit.
nobody mentions it. Or fucking Skeletor shows up in a giant parade float, right? With a bunch of people making noise and, like, lasers getting shot.
Flying on discs.
Flying on discs, like that was cool, by the way. The guys on the little, like, circular surfboards. but like nobody calls 911. Nobody, like, the only time we ever see other people is we see Charlie from the music store, or we see like a handful of cops, or like a couple of people at work before all the weird shit starts happening.
There were more cops than just the one cop?
Yeah, so when the cop guy,
I only remember the one cop.
So they have the battle in the music store, and it destroys Charlie's music store, and my personal headcanon is it bankrupts him, and he ends up getting very, very hard into selling heroin. That's my headcanon. Yeah, very likely. Yeah.
Well, particularly since the police guy stays on Eternia, so there's nobody to clear Charlie's name. That's right. So Charlie's probably blamed for everything that's happened.
Poor Charlie. So the police guy, right, like they take his gun and like all this stuff happens in this battle in the store, and they're shooting lasers, and he's like, what the fuck's going on? All this crazy stuff. And then he goes back to the police department, and he brings back a bunch of cops. And I guess he's like higher up. He's like a sergeant or he's a detective, whatever he is, right? So, of course, they're following him. And he's telling them we don't know exactly what he said, but he's basically told them there's a bunch of people shooting and like it's like a gang or whatever. And they're not believing him because I think this is meant to be like a small town where nothing weird happens. That's how he ends up with getting sucked into the other place, into Eternia, because like he brings like all those people and then they just don't buy any of it. I guess there's like some thing that happens and he follows the Cadillac and it ends up taking him to the group. And then he mysteriously meets a very beautiful woman who happens to like him, even though he's kind of obnoxious. And then he stays in Eternia. In fact, that's the only romantic plot other than Tom Paris and Monica that we get.
And that final scene is in Grayskull too, right?
Yes, correct.
That's bizarre too. Like that would have been, you would thought that would have been an Eternian palace or something like that. But they could only afford one giant Grayskull set, and that's it. So
that set is cool though.
It was apparently the largest set ever at the time.
Good lord.
They had to like knock down walls in the studio to make it. So yeah,
that's pretty cool though.
They went all out in that regard, but.
I mean, it's one of the, I don't know, like the cop guy and like the set as cool as it is, like the cop guy thing, it just comes out of nowhere. Like, he met a woman. When? When did he meet her? When did this happen? Like, do they have speed dating in Eternia? Like, he's just gone on this like, what the hell? Tila has taken me on a speed dating adventure and I met this nice lady named Frank or whatever.
Well, we have no idea where she's from, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, is she from Eternia?
Is she like? Does she like hang out in Grayskull?
Is she an alien?
Maybe she's the maid.
Oh, maybe he met the maid. Yeah. I mean, maybe the maid's really
nice. Because Grayskull
nice.
gets really dusty, and there's only the sorceress. And her thing, like, she can turn into a bird and fly around, but I don't think she does cleaning.
She doesn't do cleaning. It's the one thing the sorceress doesn't do. She needs her
feathers to like fly. So it's not like she can use them for dusting or anything.
So they have a sorceress of dusting. That's her skill, a sorceress of dusting. She also turns into like a fucking peacock and is just dusting all the shit with her feathers. Yes. And he met her and thought she was the most exquisite being that ever lived and fell in love, and his heart was softened out of fucking nowhere because it's not in the story.
That is what happened.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I kind of like the cop. Like, he's playing very much a caricature.
Yeah.
It would be nice.
He works the same way as in the other movies.
Yeah,
He's fun. And, yeah.
It'd just be nice if, like, there's no time in this movie because the volume of characters they have to have stories for, but it'd be nice if they'd at least add the little bits to help make that story work of, like, how he comes to realize, I am the one being the asshole, and I'm wrong here, and I need to be... Like, because I feel like he's one of those cops where, like, he takes his job way too seriously. It's not that he's corrupt. It's that he's too cop. Like, no kids will be doing no bad stuff. Yeah, like, you're up to no good. I'm going to arrest people for doing stuff.
Slackers.
And, like, slackers. You're a slacker. Or, like, you're definitely on the drugs or something. Like, all of that. Like, he's a little too hard with, like, the law. And it would be nice if the story was... But then he realized, like, at this moment, wait, no, this alien stuff, like this weird stuff that's going on is real. And my job as this police officer is I must protect these people. I have to help them because that's my job.
I don't think he had
me.
any such revelation. I think he was just
None.
there, and they had like a Renaissance fair. Like they had the Attorney and State Fair, and he saw it. He was like, "This place is awesome."
Out of nowhere.
There's like mead, and there's jugglers, and there's women. I'm staying here. I think that's all there is to there. And the women like him for some unknown reason. I don't know.
I guess because he kind of comes across as very, like, kind of put together. I don't know. But he's probably a pain in the ass at home.
Probably. But she's a maid, so.
We don't know that for sure. You made that up.
This is what I'm constructing in my mind. I do not know.
Even still, maybe she doesn't want to be a maid when she comes home. Maid is her job during the day.
Yeah.
You know, she comes home and he's supposed to have, like, a dinner ready or some shit. Because she's got a job. What does he do in Eternia?
Yeah, that's unclear. Because, they...
I rest my case.
That would have been the sequel.
That would have been the sequel.
That could have been the
What does he do in Eternia? He gets a job as a detective. He's just trying to make sense of this bizarre alien shit that he keeps running into.
There is a series for Netflix.
I mean, you could have a lot of fun with that. That would be a lot of fun. I would watch it. It'd be great. Just like random human cop trying to do alien detective shit. I mean, that's just alienation.
Because like each episode, he could be in like a different biome in Eternia. He could be in Avion with Stratos and all those people. He could be down with like Merman.
Oh my god. I can just see him, like, he has to go down in some water to talk to some mer people, and he's just, like, in his scuba gear, and he's just, like, super grumpy about it. Like, what the fuck? Why do I have to do this? They could just come to the surface and talk to me, but he has to go down there, and he's just being grumpy. He's trying to, like, light a cigarette, but he realizes he's underwater and he can't do it.
There's no hope. Yeah.
There's no hope. He's just... Oh, gosh. You could have fun. It'd be like Grumpy Columbo.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I'm into this. Let's make that happen. Call us, Hollywood, after the strike is over.
Kevin Smith is your next series.
Oh, Lordy. So should we get to our final thoughts and a grade, you think?
Yeah, we probably should.
So there's lots of things we could say about this movie. It's ridiculous and utterly absurd. And I love it. And I want to note one last thing before we go. I don't remember this character, but apparently Mattel ran a contest that would allow a winner to be in the movie. And there is a character named Pig Boy who briefly hands Skeletor his staff and then, I guess, leaves at some point. And he's in the credits, and that is the kid that won, or the person. So there you go. So, final thoughts and a grade. Daniel, go.
Final thoughts. It was a disappointment to me when I was a kid. Rewatching it, I was surprised it was much worse than I thought. I was still really disappointed with it overall because in my brain, I've only hung on to the highlights of it and the parts that I've always enjoyed the most and had forgotten or left out the majority of the movie, which is just boredom and unnecessary secondary plots involving the Earthlings. Involving Monica, her parents, and we didn't even talk about the bad ending, epilogue ending of Monica's parents back to life by going to the past. And so overall, with all that disappointment, I'm going to go D+.
D+.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's a fair, suitable grade, I think. So, my final thoughts, I want to like this movie. I know it's become a bit of a cult classic that people like for reasons I don't entirely understand, but sure. But it's one of those films where it's just obviously not good. And while it's not the worst thing you'll ever see in your life, we've watched films that are just horrifically bad. But it's also one of those films where you just kind of sit there and go, but this is not really a film I necessarily want to watch again. it doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities, even though Tila is adorable, and I just honestly would like to bring her flowers, if not for the fact that I'm a married man. But if I were not a married man, I would bring her flowers and try desperately to be not weak. But I just find
synthesizer.
Synthesizer would do it. She could be serenaded, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she'd find that enjoyable, but only 80 synthesizers. But to be honest, I'm going to do that for my wife because I love my wife very much. So that'll be what I'll do instead. Because I very much like being married to my wife, who is my personal Tila. Anyway, yeah, she's my... I mean, let's be real. She's
a warrior.
She is a warrior.
A warrior goddess. Yeah.
Yeah, she could destroy the world. But in any case, yeah, it's just not a great movie. So, I will say that it gets a little bit of a minus for killing off the lizard person, because I personally don't like that. Stop doing it, Hollywood. Lizard people are great, make them good guys. So for that reason, I'm just gonna I'll give it a D. I think it's just not, it's not so bad that, like, it needs to go much lower, but I don't ever actually want to watch it again. so I won't. This is the one time. I'm good now. But yeah. Folks in chat, if you'd like to give your grade, we use the American grading scale, so pluses and minuses are allowed. Anything from an F- to an A+. So if you'd like to toss your grade in, you are more than welcome to do so. In the meantime, I think we need to get to the normal closing out of our show, yeah?
Yeah, time to wrap it up.
So, for the podcast portion, folks, thanks very much for being here. If you would like to let us know, especially if you're Cora Bueller, would like to let us know what you thought about this episode, you can go to skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. You can also follow us. We're basically everywhere. We're usually Skiffy and Fanty on pretty much everything, but we have a link tree, which is linktr.ee/Skiffy and Fanty. We're most active on Mastodon, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Facebook, a little bit on Instagram as well, but you can find us pretty much everywhere, including Threads. So you can get our newsletter at skiffyandfanty.com/newsletter. And if you do like what we do, please give us $1 a month if you'd like at patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. That'll get you access to our Patreon Discord. If you go $3 and up, you can also join us for our live chats about the movies we do for Torture Cinema. So do that if you'd like to. And then please give reviews at iTunes, Good Pods HQ, Podchaser, all of those things. Rating the show really does help. And please tell your friends about us, because with Twitter and Freefall, it's kind of hard to advertise the show right now.
Hard to spread the word.
Please do. Use your mouth hole to spread the word. So, for me, I'm at SeanDuke.net. I am also on Twitch at Alphabet Streams, Tuesdays, Thursdays at 7. Currently, I'm at patreon.com/thejoyfactory. And then I also have a link tree for all my socials and newsletters and all that stuff, which is /SeanDuke instead. And then I do a thing called The Histories at SeanDuke.net/thehistories. And that's where you can find me. As for you, Daniel, where can folks find you?
You can find me at reading 1000, that's 1 with 30, lives.com, or at reading 1K lives on Twitter, and now I'm on Blue Sky as well.
Perfect. So do go check out Daniel, and keep an eye out the blog on Skiffy Fanty. For folks that are live, that'll be ramping up probably August. For folks that are not live, it may or may not have already started.
It might have happened already, yeah.
Yeah, but that should be skiffyfanty.com/blog, I believe is the link. Either blog or the blog. I'll have to double check, but I didn't put it in the script, so.
Or yeah, just go to skiffyandfanty.com and click on blog.
You could do that too. That's actually easier than listening to whatever bullshit I just said. Yeah. So thanks very much, Daniel, for
Thank you.
choosing to do this with your life. So
there's so many more from 87 to do.
There's a lot more. We will not be doing this theme for the next one because we have to be varied. But let's be real, we will never run out of bad movies. No. It'll never happen. So I do need to make it awkward. So by the power of Grayskull, I am now offering 50% off at Walmart's clearance rack for old action figures from TV shows you don't remember.
Walmart will be mine!
And on that note, awkward ending.
Good journey.
Good journey. Good journey. Yay. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.